Welcome to the GCN Tech Clinic, where we aim to answer your bike and tech related questions. And you can submit your questions as ever using the hashtag AskGCNTech down in the comments below and on social media. And we'll aim to answer as many of your questions as possible. So first up this week, we've got a question from Ian Cruz, who says, is it true that it may not be safe to use latex inner tubes on carbon rim brake wheels due to the high temperatures when braking? Thanks. Yes, that is true, but it also applies to alloy rim brake wheels as well, not just carbon. And it actually applies more to alloy rim brake wheels because, alloys are better at conducting heat from the braking to the inner tube. They're a better conductor of heat than carbon. And so, yes, if you brake on your rim and build up heat, that heat can then cause the inner tube to fail, and latex tubes are more prone to this than a standard thick butyl tube. It does also apply to those super lightweight inner tubes as well. They often have like a temperature or braking warning written in the small print of the packaging, like the Continental Supersonic inner tube. So it's something to be aware of. It's not a problem that you encounter with disc brakes, another advantage to using disc brakes, and also tubulars, because the inner tube is not in sort of direct contact with the braking surface of the rim on a rim brake tubular wheel. So that's something to be aware of. Right, next question is from Daniel Duvernay, who says, is there a place where I could purchase the poster on the wall, this one, about wrestling a gorilla, don't quit when you're tired? My dad's birthday's coming up and I'd very much like to get one for him. Well, yeah, you can. I got it from an artist in the Lake District in the UK from a shop called the Northern Line Shop. So he sells them there, and yeah, I actually bought that. So there you go. Yeah, check him out. He's got some nice ones. Next question from Rich AW says, is Ollie actually Tyler Durden from Bike Club? First rule about Bike Club, we don't talk about Bike Club. Next question is from Anthonyms, who says, this is the first time I've written a question and been early. Should I buy a budget bike and upgrade it, or just get enough money to invest in an expensive one? Well, I mean, that's a very hard question to answer because it depends on your personal circumstances. But I would always say, go for the budget option and see if you enjoy it and take to it. And if you find you would get more pleasure out of and can afford a more expensive bike, then do that. It's a bit like when you get a musical instrument or something. You don't get the most expensive Stradivarius when you start playing the violin. You get a basic one and see if you take to it, and then you can upgrade. And you're probably going to appreciate a better group set more when you're a more experienced, more skilled rider. So I'd do it that way round. Yusef HR says, I'm wondering for my new wheel set I use for all-round use, more often climbing, and he wants it to be durable. His budget is around $1,000. Do we have any recommendations? Well, for that price, there's a lot of great wheels out there at the moment, but I would say that if you're disc brake, then you could go into the realms of carbon at that point, because you're not gonna, trash your rim on your carbon wheel, which is quite easy to do if you're wanting to use them all the time, especially in bad weather and in dirty conditions. So if you're disc brake, I would suggest maybe looking at carbon wheels. There's some good ones around £1,000 these days, or $1,000. But if you're rim brake, then I'd probably recommend for all-round durable use, still sticking with alloy, because it's gonna last that much longer and be more durable. And it might be, slightly a little bit heavier, but that's what I'd go for. Benedek Navaratil says, I recently watched a dream bike build video where they assembled Ilnur Zakharin's bike, and at the end the bike was only 6.27 kilos. That is pretty light. How is that possible? Well, quite easily with modern bikes and components. And what do they do to avoid disqualification? Do they put additional weight in the seat post? Well, in some instances, yes, they do. I do know of many pro bikes on particularly light models, such as, the Canyon Ultimates have often been an example of this. Nairo Quintana's bikes, because he also rides a very small frame, the mechanics often have to add additional weight to his Canyon Ultimate in order to get it up to the UCI weight limit. But this is kind of stupid because in many instances, someone like Nairo Quintana would benefit from having components added that are heavier, that also give him a better, more aerodynamic bike. So for example, a slightly heavier but aero handlebar, or maybe slightly deeper but slightly heavier but more aero wheels and things like that. And in many instances, the sort of riders perceive that they want the sort of just lightest bike possible, but then bizarrely add fishing weights and things down in the seat posts, or use alloy stems and things that don't really give them any return in performance. So yeah, they do all sorts of different things to it. In some cases, manufacturers add heavier paint to get the Cannondale have done that in the past for the team issue bikes to get them up. But yeah, there you go. Lots of different ways they can do it. But yeah, it has to be 6.8 kilograms in order to be a bike that can be ridden by him in a race. Jane Leach says, my local bike shop does airless Tyres tyres. I've never heard anyone talk about them before when comparing tyre options. Are they a gimmick? Any pros or cons? Right. Tyres tyres, for those that aren't familiar, are a brand that make airless tyres, like a solid tyre that just mounts on your rim. The advantage of a tyre like this is, well, it's impossible to get punctures, and it lasts a really long time, which means it could be good for kind of commuting purposes maybe, or if you live in a place where there's just loads of puncture hazards on the road. But the big disadvantage with them is ride feel and rolling resistance. Riding on those tyres compared to a normal kind of road tyre with an inner tube on, it kind of feels like you're pedalling through custard. They're not fast rolling tyres, and it's for this reason that solid tyre technology hasn't taken off and taken over the world. They're so much slower rolling than a normal inner tube and tyre setup. And yeah, that's the main disadvantage there. Jops Joseph gives us our last question this week, which is, what is the most aerodynamic position to lock your quick release levers, front and rear? I'm thinking marginal gains, but it'd be nice to know. Well, I think conventional wisdom would say that the best way to do it is to put them horizontal. And in most cases, I see people placing the rear one pointing backwards, even though a lot of people say, point it forwards, so it doesn't catch on someone's wheel behind you and undo. But yeah, probably pointing horizontal, definitely. Whether it's front or back probably makes not much difference. However, there is another thing that you can do if you really are thinking marginal gains, which is to get leverless quick release levers. We've actually seen these being used by pros in time trials. Of course, it means that if you have a puncture and need to change your wheel or get your wheel out, you need to get an Allen key out, and it gets a bit more fiddly than a quick release. It's no longer quick. But it does save, like half a watt? So for every little count, I've seen riders like Thibaut Pinot using these on his time trial bike, and Stefan Kung and other riders as well. So yeah, have a look at those. That's all we've got time for this week. It's always a pleasure answering your questions, and sorry if I didn't get around to answering your specific question this week, but keep them coming using the hashtag AskGCNTech down below, and we'll try our best to get round to answering it in a future show. But I'll see you next time, or it'll be Alex, or someone else. It'll be one of us. Anyway, I'm going. Bye.